Welcome everybody to the Dialect Diaries, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing combining two different videos into one and giving some commentary on it. I will link these two videos or prior videos of mine. One is about the cosmological argument, infinite regression, and the need for an uncaused cause to exist, because even if we had infinite regression, time would have had to have been before there could have been cause and effect. Time would be needed. So time must have always existed if we have infinite regression. And therefore, time itself would have to be an uncaused phenomenon. So either way you're looking at it, it would be an uncaused phenomenon. And then the second video, talking about top-down and bottom-up causation and how it affects complex systems. And so what I want to do is I want to bring the two topics together and discuss the need for an uncaused event to have occurred. Combine that with the fact that it was the top-down or bottom-up causation, which was this first thing that occurred. Was it extremely complex and became simplified? Or was it extremely simple and became complex? So dive with me, and I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ever wondered about life's big questions? At Dialectic Diaries, we explore faith, reason, and everything in between. Subscribe now, challenge your beliefs, expand your mind.
There must have been an uncaused event somewhere, because we have cause and effect now, and that means that anything that had came to being had, something else caused that to happen. Now, the reason why infinite regression doesn't work is because it still would have to have an uncaused phenomenon called time, because infinite things there couldn't be constant. In other words, cause and effect is there's something that caused every effect. So if we trace all those causes and effects back, it could not go all the way to infinity and beyond. It had to have a beginning. And the reason why is because otherwise time itself would have had to exist, and time would have had to have been uncaused in order to have infinite regression. So either way, you're having an uncaused effect that needs to be explained, because we know that cause and effect exists now. So the real question is what is the nature of this uncaused effect? Was it simplify and just became more complex and eventually created space and time as we know it in the universe, and just, eventually it's growing and growing, and now we have, human consciousness, which seems to be rather difficult to explain. And so, is that the case, or could it be that there was an extremely supreme being that began everything and decided to simplify? It's a profound question. Top-down, bottom-up causation. That's why I am referring to this video and why I posted previous videos, so people could understand. Science says that most complex systems, it's both ways. It's both top-down and bottom-up. And again, I want to invite you to please take a look at this video. It's called Well, I'll post a link, and I'll post a link in the description, and I'll put a little choice to click on it at the end of the video. So, all right, so basically, top-down, bottom-up causation in most complex systems occur both ways. It's a two-way street, in other words. It's hard to say that one preceded the other, or which one's more important, or so. I think that when exploring the possibility of the first uncaused being extremely complex and desiring to simplify is a plausible concept. And so this is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that I've got reasons why this first cause would be an extremely complex being, so to speak, and want to simplify. But I don't have any reason to conclude that simplicity would arise complexity. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it definitely could not have been that way. That's what we're here to discuss. However, my problem with that idea is that there's no reason for it to occur. It must have happened by accident or by chance. There's no reason for the most simplest thing known to possibly exist would decide to grow to be more complex. And unless it just happened to happen by chance. Which I can accept. I mean, maybe. But let's explore these ideas. Because in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense. Especially when I have reasons why I believe the most extreme complex thing would decide to simplify. Now, from our perspective, the most supremely complex molecules known to man exist within ourselves, like our brain. There are some very complex things when it involves the viruses and certain other things, but it could strongly be argued that the most complex compounds that have ever existed and known in science are within the human brain. So we like to think that these things came from an evolution, and it was simple compounds that became more complex. But did that have a reason to do that? Was there an underlying reason for that to happen? And if so, if there is some kind of rule of nature that this is bound to happen, what put that into motion? So, there's a lot of things that need to be explained, and not many answers that are very satisfying. So the reason why I could see a supremely complex being wanting to simplify is because, let's just say this being was alone. It was the first being that ever existed. And it was the most complex being. Being as in having a conscious like you and I have. We can independently think Even though, yes, this, that might be occurring from the machine of this body, but either way, it's still a being. So if we're talking about supreme complexity, we're talking about the most supreme complex things that we can know are our own consciousness. And then we're talking about some more complex than that. Well, it must have involved consciousness. So yes, it's safe to call this first purpose or uncaused thing, if it was supremely complex, to have been a being. Now, so the reason why this supremely complex being would have wanted to simplify is because it was by itself and it wanted to experience something that it couldn't experience all alone. So it decided to create other beings to communicate with, so there can be relationship, which require at least two. So one became two, and so on. So relationship could exist. So that's one reason. Now, the second reason is, okay, now if this being decided to make another being to have relationship with, that it could only experience if another being did exist, then this being would have had to have been known less than the creator. The created must have known less than the creator, because if God is all-knowing and it created another being that was all-knowing, then there would be no need for the two beings to communicate. So, because the two beings could not communicate, there wouldn't be relationship between the two. I mean, what would two beings have to say to each other? Before two all-knowing beings, before the one being even says something to the other being is already going to know what the first being was going to say, was about to even say it. So there's absolutely no reason why two all-knowing beings would communicate to each other, and therefore a relationship could not be born. And so this God decided to simplify in a manner that would create relationship, and as a result, it needed to produce other beings that were not omniscient, that did not know everything. So communication would be needed between the two beings, and relationship could exist. So that's why a supremely complex being would choose to simplify. So on one hand, we have a supremely complex being choosing to simplify top down. On the other hand, we have extremely simplified compounds joining together to create complexity and create consciousness as we know it. So, which one makes more sense to you? Like and subscribe. Please leave your comments in the section and look forward to the next video. Hit that notification bell.